We are live. We are live. Welcome to College Football's Peek Around the Corner with your host, Greg Flugar. We cover everything in college football because we love everything in college football. And if you do as well, please subscribe to our channel. Smash the like button if you like our content. Share the video with your family and friends. If you want to support this Rebel Outpost College Football YouTube channel with a donation, just hit the $ where you make the comment and we'll get to your super chat as quick as possible. Welcome in. Welcome into the studio that sits on the corner of Keith Jackson Parkway in Kurt Gowdy Avenue. Do not be afraid. Do not be afraid to be a legend with your comments or with your phone calls later in the show. It's been a very busy Wednesday, February 28th. Here at Peek Around the Corner. We already dropped episode 377 earlier today. So if you haven't checked that out after the live show, check out episode 377, John Wilner, Mercury News, Kirk Schultz, realignment isn't done per Kirk Schultz, and I believe that to be accurate among the Power 4 conferences and the G5. We also dropped an early peak episode 25 for early peak members. So early peak Cloak and Dagger members, you might want to watch that episode of this morning. If you want to become an early peak member, just go to the link in the description, hit the link, hit the join button, and you're going to be given cloak and dagger information before everybody else on some stories across college football. The last one this morning, episode 25, had to do with G5. Had to do with G5 possibly splitting into different distribution models, tiers, when it comes to the playoffs. If you want to become an early peak cloak and dagger member, just go to the link, hit the join button. Now, you know, here at Peek Around the Corner, 2 live shows ago, yesterday and on Monday, we talked about Josh Pate's reporting, late kick, Josh Pate, when he brought up what he was hearing about the conferences possibly having a conference tournament, having like a conference semifinal weekend. They don't want to devalue their championship game, which is the part I agree with. However, before that, and when we talked about Josh Pate, and after, on Monday, on Tuesday, and especially today, we have been pounding the table here at Peek Around the Corner that we are hearing without a shadow of a doubt that the Big Ten has dug in their heels when it comes to multiple auto bids for 2026 and beyond, and it looks like the SEC is right with them. Last night's show, we talked about, I think it was called, the Big Ten digging in their heels. This is what they're going for. This is what Tony Petitti's working on. And I said before we closed out the live show yesterday, what did I say? I said I would be shocked if we did not get an update on the college football playoffs tomorrow, which is today. And I also said I would be shocked if it wasn't about the Big Ten digging in their heels to try to get multiple auto bids. Well, it happened. It happened. And I think it's going to happen more and more often. I think the negotiation table, everyone's at the table, the G5, the ACC, Big 12, Notre Dame, SEC, Big 10. And I think we're seeing the framework. I think we're seeing what it's possibly going to look like. Horse trading. That was mentioned in Dennis Dodd's article today. I mentioned that a week ago. That 4th auto bid could be traded for a 3rd auto bid, but then you're going to have to readjust the percentages on what the Big Ten and the SEC makes compared to the other 2 power conferences. I mentioned that in a live show, and it's written today in its CBS article. This is where it's going. This is where it's going. And we also believe at PATC that the number is going to get to 16. It's not going to stay at 14. Not because of the SEC and the Big Ten, but because of the other players. I'm going to get to that. I'm going to get to that as well. Today, February 28th, PATC's reporting this. Dennis Dodd's not doing that. Pete Thamel, Brett McMurphy, Heather Dinich, Ross Dellinger, all of them. No, we are reporting, PATC. We are reporting that the Big Ten and the SEC is not a done deal. Of course it's not a done deal. It might not be a done deal until April 28th. And today's February 28th. Hopefully it happens before that. But we are reporting that, yes, the Big Ten and the SEC will get multiple bids. I don't know what the ACC is getting. Don't know what the Big 12 is getting. I don't know what the number the Big Ten and the SEC are getting. But those two conferences are getting multiple bids. It's going to happen. It's not an if, it's just a when and how many. It's because, and we're going to go through Dennis Dodd's article that was released just now, a few minutes ago. It's because, well, Dennis Dodd's article explains it a lot better than I can, but we've talked about it before. It sort of dog walks every other issue. Playoff distribution, how the playoff is formatted, voting rights, it's all going to follow the automatic bids and how many you get. It also solves a lot of the distribution issues when it comes to the revenue. We're going to get to it. I know a lot of people don't like it. I don't like it. But my job is to give you the peak. I've been giving you this peak for days. There's been a lot of speculation, a lot of different reporting, peek around that, which is cool, which is fine, but peek around the corner, we were told, as you know, because we've been covering this on all of our live shows, that the Big Ten, this is the hill that they're gonna die on. And the SEC's joining them on this. So they're gonna get it. If they don't get it, but they will. But if they won't, then we're talking about other major stories that we don't even want to get to. But the Big Ten and the SEC are getting multiple bids. We are very comfortable, automatic bids. We are very comfortable in reporting this today, February 28th. We've been on this for days and days and days. Because of the information that we've been receiving. I told you about a certain Big Ten administrator that told us a few days ago, I did a live show on it, that the Big Ten is not interested in what Josh Pate was talking about. They want automatic multiple bids, and this is the number one issue for them. Now, I want to thank everybody who's come on in. I want to thank everybody who's come on in, started the show, James Foster, Richard L., early peak member, Randy Taylor, Terry, Chief fan is in the house. Big 12 expansion coming soon? I don't know what soon is. I think it's going to happen. I don't know about soon, but that depends on what your definition of soon is. Michael Batts is in the house, early peak member. KS Bear FN is in the house. R. Webb, Neeson, Alani Ted, Skull Ducky, early peak member. Mr. Monkey says Lee, Matt Schnuck. I'm not really sure what to make of multiple bids. Yeah, we're going to find out in 2026. We're going to find out in 2026. AMAC, Patrick, the Baylor Bear, is in the house. Antoine Coates, ASU. Thanks for coming on in. Chief Fan is in the house. D5 Terps, Mr. Hoosier, Montcastle, St. James is in the house. Chief Fan 2, Jimmy is in the house. Lannis 31, Preston from Greensboro, North Carolina, Immaculate. The Hawkeye is in the house. Black Rain is in the house. Joaquin Morales is in the house. Mr. Buckeye Jer Jones, Cameron B. Rock Chalk, Jay Hawk is in the house. Xmas, Black Rain. Holy smokes, a lot of people coming on early. Matt Neeson, Mr. Cyclone, is in the house. Lance Leipold. Cameron B, thank you for the super chat. Yeah, you got a big raise. We'll cover that. We will cover that. Got a big raise, $7 million. That's the middle of the Big Ten. I believe that's what PJ Fleck gets. Kansas is, they're loading up. They are loading up. They are a threat to win the Big 12 this year. I am very interested to see the predictions coming out of Big 12 media days, right? Utah, they're going to be number one. But after that, Kansas is going to be up there. Okay. Okay, so, and I've got, people are talking about the conference championship game. If it was up to the Big Ten and the SEC totally, and a lot of it is, but not totally, they would bump it up to 14. But we believe at Peek Around the Corner, that number is going to get to 16. And we'll explain here in a little bit. Let's get to Dennis Dodd's breaking report. And this is Dennis Dodd's piece. This is not Peek Around the Corner's piece. We are in almost total agreement with Dennis Dodd, and and this is the consensus. I'm not going to speak for everybody, but this is the consensus of what people believe in the industry. This is the direction we're going to, and keep your eye on the horse trading element to the formation of the CFP in 2026 going forward. Like it or not, the nation's most powerful conferences will have an outside role in the ever-changing CFP. It was never going to be easy. It was never going to be easy formalizing the moment the Big Ten and the SEC were partners. Certainly the leagues themselves would always admit to being chummy. For a long time, the conferences were rivals in every sense. Recruiting, championships, and TV contracts. Again, Dennis Dodd, CBS Sports, put this out about 30 minutes ago. In a famous 2007 letter to the fans, former Big Ten Commissioner Jim Delaney took a not-so-veiled shot at the SEC. Delaney compared the two leagues at the time, saying there were appropriate balances when mixing academics and athletics in the Big Ten. At the time, the SEC was about to put a death grip on college football, one that has lasted to this day, with the conference winning 13 of the last 17 national championships. At the same time, the Big Ten, well, it was losing its grip. Litter of the rankers still exist as we step out to the edge of a new college football playoff. In fact, it will be bigger, groundbreaking CFP, largely because of the combined swagger of the Big Ten and the SEC. A partnership between the two leagues announced earlier this month as an advisory group went way deeper. The depth of that combined power was laid bare at the latest college football playoff management committee meeting when the Big Ten and the SEC reportedly proposed multiple automatic qualifiers for the leagues beginning in 2026, and that has continued. That's the main issue that they're pushing. That's why I've been very comfortable in reporting that to you all in the last week, live show after live show, because behind the curtain, this is the issue they are pushing, particularly the Big Ten, but the SEC as well. Or conference commissioners emerging from a meeting confirmed that the field expansion to 14 teams or as many as 16, and we're going to get to that, starting in 2026 was a possibility. This before the CFP has even played its first season as a 12-team bracket in 2024. So far, this lobbying from the Big Ten and the SEC is not so much an ultimatum. It isn't. It's an inevitability. It's just going to happen. Maybe not exactly the way the Big Ten and SEC wants it, but they're going to get most of what they're going for here. So it doesn't even have to be an ultimatum. Not at this point, and probably not for the next 8 years, to be honest with you. Realignment and consolidation have left the nation's two most dominant conferences with most of the best brands. The resulting windfall in media rights has put unprecedented separation between those leagues and everyone else. The Big Ten and the SEC have combined to occupy 113 of 184 CFP, BCS, CFP slots, 62%, since the BCS started in 1998. Under their collective tents, the Big Ten and the SEC have nearly all of college football's best rivalries. Michigan, Ohio State, USC, UCLA, Oklahoma, Texas, Texas A&M, Alabama, LSU, Alabama, Auburn, and Florida versus Georgia, among many others. Rivalries create passion, which translates into ratings. Those ratings turn into leverage. That leverage revealed itself last week. A whole lot of leverage. We're still in a bit of uncharted territory here, SEC Commissioner Greg Sankey said last week during a visit to South Carolina. But what you saw in that announcement was the acknowledgement of the expectation of leadership that exists for these two conferences. You know, Sankey really never says anything, does he? He never really... Anyways, back to the article. The pair, Petitti and Sankey, are now arguably the most powerful single entity in college sports. As the NCAA's authority declines and realignment has directed power, influence, and cash to the Big Ten and the SEC, last week's CFP's meeting was an inflection point. Here's how and why. Let me see if I can bump this. No, I don't think I can. Okay. Big money at stake. At the center of those leagues' ascensions, it is reported $1.3 billion media rights deal with ESPN for the expanded CFP beginning in 2026. That will be the largest such deal in college sports history. It is the key to all future talks in terms of access, revenue distribution, and just how much access ESPN can get to the Big Ten and the SEC. The pressure surrounding that number has ratcheted up. Coming out of last week's meeting, it was stressed the parties have 1 month to finalize a playoff structure beginning in 2026. This as they sit less than 10 months out from the debut of the 12-team bracket. They got to get this done. And I don't think this is just ESPN bluffing. There's a lot of things going on here. A lot of moving parts. They got to get it done. Complicating matters. Animosity is being reported from the NFL regarding the Saturday, December 21st first round games, when for the first time the CFP will go head-to-head with the Shield, with the NFL. ESPN would like to know what it's getting for its $1.3 billion. to co-opt the network's own CFP's marketing slogan, "Who's in?" Another round of realignment looms if Florida State can, release themselves from the ACC gore, extricate themselves. That looks more likely than ever based on recent reporting in the Tampa Bay Times. People, and I know this is Dennis Dodd's article, but I think the needle is starting to move in the industry, within the industry. They believe by hook or by crook, Florida State will pay out, will get a settlement, will get out of the ACC. The potential for additional playoff games to be included in the bracket comes so late in the process that the CFP could be playing games for free. In other words, additional money might not even go into the coffers if they go from 12 teams to 14 teams, 12 teams to 16 teams, to go from 11 games to 13 games, to go from 11 games to 15 games. ESPN is unlikely to increase its $1.3 billion offer for the playoff after initially pricing the package with 12 teams. Should the CFP choose its own to expand the field starting 2026, multiple industry sources told CBS Sports. However, a win-win scenario looms with further playoff expansion to 14 or 16. And again, we have PATC are reporting today after going through the last week, talking about how we were being told over and over again that the Big Ten had dug in their heels to get multiple auto bids. We also believe, and we'll explain at the end of the article why we believe this is going to go to 16. 14 is the chalk, especially within the industry, Pete Thamel and everybody else. But we believe here at Peek Around the Corner, it's going to go to 16. We'll get to that in a little bit, even though that's not what the SEC and the Big Ten want. They want it at 14. However, a win-win scenario looms with further playoff expansion to 14 or 16 teams. The Big Ten and the SEC get their automatic qualifiers, yet there remains plenty of access for the ACC, Big 12, Notre Dame, and Group of Five. ESPN can choose to sublicense some of those added games to reduce financial burden. And here is the PATC money shot of the article. Guaranteed playoff bids are key. And again, we feel very comfortable in reporting that the Big Ten and the SEC are going to get them. From what we are hearing, what we've been reporting you for today, for days, it's got to happen. Pretty much it's got to happen. Guaranteed playoff bids are key, and potentially receiving multiple automatic qualifiers into the playoff, the Big Ten and the SEC would be setting precedent. A conference has never before received more than one guaranteed bid for the league in a collegiate national championship tournament setting, not basketball, not baseball. The only certainty in the past, win your conference tournament and you're in. As such, the Big Ten and the SEC would essentially be bogarting the bracket. They are seeking as many as 4 teams in each in a 14 or 16 team field. They are seeking as many as 4 teams in a 14 or 16 team field. They're going for 4. They are going for 4. But they might go down to 3, as we reported about 5 days ago. The same scenario that Dennis Dodd is reporting today. And we're going to get to it in a little bit. That's a recognition. The SEC and the Big Ten going for both 4 automatic bids. That's a recognition of the conference's power and the CFP's new economics. In the future, the two teams playing for a CFP national championship could earn as much as $20 million each for their respective leagues. Simple math and on-field success tells you the Big Ten and the SEC will get a greater portion of those slots. But in a playoff that has historically struggled to achieve high ratings at times, will an oversaturated of superpowers actually turn off the public? What if the conference championship games are purely held for seeding purposes in the future? And that's what a lot of people are getting at in the chat. The value of the conference championship games are going to diminish if it's only about seeding. Not even about getting a bye. Only about seeding if it's 16 teams. And if it's 14 teams, the conference championship games only really matter when it comes to who gets the bye for the top two conference champions. We'll get to that back there in a moment. Adding automatic qualifiers may also reflect the conference's lack of trust in the CFP selection committee, which was unable to transparently explain why it left an undefeated ACC champion Florida State out of the field last season. Now, pay close attention to this. At the end of the day, you tell me who deserves to go. A 10-2 Big 12 team or a 9-3 Big 10 team? A 10-2 Big 12 team or a 9-3 Big 10 team? Posted one industry insider. It's completely subjective. But not if that 9-3 Big 10 team is guaranteed a spot. Revenue up for grabs. Expansion of the bracket allows the Big Ten and the SEC to receive their automatic bids while ensuring no one gets left out in the cold. It also keeps the antitrust lawyers off the CFP's back. This is what Big Ten and the SEC, they're trying to get everything. Automatic bids, more money, voting rights are going to come with that. Nobody gets left out. Everybody keeps their access, keeps the antitrust lawyers off the back. Access to the BCS, CFP, and the riches within has always been sort of a gentleman's agreement. The Power Five currently get an equal share, about $80 million each. The Group of Five splits 22%, while receiving just one guaranteed spot in the New Year's Six. In the 12-team field, which is in place for at least 24 and 25, the highest ranked Group of Five champion receives a guaranteed spot. Access and revenue still needs to be negotiated, started in 2026. The concept of a tiered revenue distribution was discussed at last week's meeting. Going forward, revenue distribution could be tiered further, with the Big Ten and the SEC getting larger equal shares, followed by a bundling of the ACC and Big 12 and a second tier. There is some possible horse trading to be done, and we talked about this about 5 or 6 days ago here at Peek Around the Corner. The Big Ten and the SEC could give up one of those guaranteed bids in return for more revenue within their tier. If each received 3 instead of 4 in a 14-team bracket, the Big Ten and the SEC would make up nearly half the field. Either they're getting 8 in a 14-team field or 6 in a 14-team field. We at Peek Around the Corner, we believe it's going to go to 16. We'll explain at the end of the article. But I think you're going to, I think We'll talk about it at the end of the article. Easier to vote, tougher to decide. Remember how Oregon State and Washington State recently attempted to leverage the CFP given votes currently needed to be unanimous? All such decisions in 2026, we've been talking about this for 18 months, will require no such unanimity. It doesn't have to be unanimous. It doesn't have to be 11-0 votes. Not every FBS commissioner in Notre Dame has to vote yes. In fact, the way it was described to CBS Sports, the CFP will consist of parties to commit to being a part of it. If that sounds like a circular explanation, it is. But there won't be anything to commit to without the Big Ten and the SEC. So it's probably best to get on board with what the game's giants want. So that's where we're at. And I've been definitely honest with you, transparent with you. What the Big Ten and the SEC, especially the Big Ten, what they've been pushing for here. Every day at early peak. This is what they want. They want those auto bids. And then everything is going to be dog walked following that. This, as the CFP, will almost certainly be tasked with taking on more of a stewardship role in college football. The size of the ESPN contract will at least make it possible to provide more comprehensive insurance for players. The CFP could then, on its own, decide to share revenue with players. They're having these conversations while all this other stuff is going on, not thinking, oh bleep, maybe we shouldn't do this without player input, said Jason Stahl, labor activist and head of the College Football Players Association. That, to me, unfortunately, strikes me as people who are living in a bubble of their ideas about the way things should be. They are having trouble seeing the reality of the new world emerging. I absolutely agree on that as well. So that's the article. Dennis Dodd, CBS Sports. Now, let me expand on this. We believe this is going to go to 16. The people who have been telling us about the automatic qualifiers believe this is going to go to 16. It could stay at 4. It could stay at 14. It's not 14 is the chalk. But it's probably going to go to 16. There's a couple different reasons why that is. One, the timing. This is something that they're taking seriously. It has to get done. Maybe the Big Ten, the SEC, the Big 12, the ACC, the G5, maybe everybody's being foolish, naive, but at this point it doesn't matter. They are taking the threat of ESPN pulling out of their bid. They're taking it seriously. So it has to get done. In their perception, it has to get done quick. Now it's 3.5 weeks. It has to get done. It has to get done quickly. So that's like the most important thing. Getting it done quickly. Getting everybody to buy in as quick as possible. That's one of the reasons why they believe people are talking to us, think it's going to go to 16. They don't want, this is not a power play. Now, there's a lot of reasons about with Notre Dame. We've been told that. This is not about the SEC and the Big Ten secretly trying to figure out a way to push Notre Dame into a conference. This is not a power play to have all these automatic bids to push Notre Dame into a conference. There's a lot of cloak and dagger stuff going on, but we are being told that's not it. There's going to be other reasons why Notre Dame could be jumping into the Big Ten. And pretty much all of it is revenue. They're not going to be able to match up with the Big Ten in the years going forward. Or, of course, the SEC. But this is not, they want to get Notre Dame on board. Notre Dame is relevant. Notre Dame has a voice. Not as much as they used to. They're losing leverage. The walls are closing in. We've covered all that. But they probably go to 16 to get Notre Dame more quickly on board. To get the ACC and the Big 12 more on board because there's going to be more at-large spots. The potentiality of the ACC and the Big 12 getting an extra at-large bid, again, we have not been told that. All we know here, peek around the corner, been telling you the last 5 days, Big Ten wants 4. And they're willing to horse trade maybe down to 3, but then you're going to have to kick up the percentage of the automatic money they were going to get out of the pot anyways. Whatever. They're going for 4. To go to 16 greases everybody's skids. It greases everybody's skids to get this done quickly. There's a couple problems, though. There's a couple problems. Going from 14 to 16. One is the SEC and the Big Ten prefers 14. They want the number 1 and the number 2 ranked conference champion to get an automatic bye. That puts more value into their conference championship games and the Big 12 and the ACC. That's why they want to would rather have this thing stick to 14. They don't want they want, obviously they want it all. They want to keep the value of the conference championship game. They want the 4 automatic qualifiers each. But if you're looking at 14, you're looking at 4, 1, a Big 10, Big 12. That's already 10. G5, you're looking at only 3 at-large bids. We believe this is going to end up at 16. And we have said that for 3 or 4 days. We're not going to report that today. That definitely it is, because we can't do that. But we are reporting today at Peek Around the Corner that the Big Ten and the SEC are going to get their multiple automatic bids, either 4 or 3. So Dennis Dodd, we said it last night. Now, Dennis Dodd doesn't know me from a hole in the wall. But we were pretty confident. We had heard some stuff last night that there was going to be a major update today, and it was going to buttress what we were telling you about Big Ten going for those automatic qualifying spots. And there's going to be more reporting on this, so keep your head on a swivel. Today, tomorrow, okay? So I think what we're seeing here is the parties are continually talking, maybe not the presidents. Like Kirk Schultz said, Washington State, Mercury News, John Wilner. We talked about in episode 377. But there are continued talks, especially among SEC and the Big Ten. Brett Yormark is talking all the time with the commissioners of the Big Ten and SEC. We're going to multiple automatic bids, 14 or 16 team playoff. It looks like it's going to be 16. And there's probably not going to be additional money added onto it, which is another negative thing about going to 14 and especially going to 16. But that's where we think it's going. I'm going to get to your comments. I am going to get to your phone call. We're going to open up the phone lines right now. Dennis Dodd, CBS Sports, confirming our reporting of the last 4 or 5 days. The number 763 260 1333. 763 260 1333. We do not think, we've been told no about the idea of these conferences going to pods. going to divisions. Not happening. There's no interest. I respect Josh Pate, respect his reporting. Maybe he's talking to the right people. Maybe I'm talking to the wrong people. That very well could be. We shall see. But there is no interest in that for the reasons we've gone over before. Dan Halstead. Division I, Washington, Oregon, USC, UCLA, Nebraska, Iowa, Wisconsin, Michigan, Northwestern, Illinois. Michigan State, Ohio State. No, there is no competitive balance in that. I appreciate the comment, but that's not where the Big Ten's going. Not now. Not for 2026. 4 groups of 5. Don't think that's where we're going. We'll see. Patrick loved that college football had the possibility for small schools. Now college football wants to be NFL-like. Well, we do know look, 2024, we're going to get a G5 school in the playoffs. We only had that happen once before. That was Cincinnati. We're going to get that in 24. We're going to get that in 25. And from everything we are hearing, and we've been consistent on this, G5 is not going to get kicked to the curb for 2026 to 2032. So they're going to have representation in the playoff more than in what it's been in the last 20 years. So there is some democratization when you think about that. Daniel Montcastle, Notre Dame should stay with the ACC, no matter what happens there. Again, Notre Dame, it's about revenue. It's about revenue, and it's going to get more and more difficult for them to keep up. If they want to play at the highest level of college football in the era of where the student athletes, the players are going to get more and more compensation. They need to expand the scholarship limits. These upcoming seasons will be grueling. Definitely. They're going to be getting paid. I don't know how much they're going to expand the scholarship limits. There's going to be so much added cost, but that could happen. Rock and Rant, I've got a bone to pick with you, my friend. Get ready. Rock and Rant, thank you for the super chat. Appreciate it. Movie Time Blues. Now people understand how political power in college football works. Phone lines are open. 763-260-1333 again. Dennis Dodd, CBS Sports. We got new people coming on in here all the time. Article of this morning. There it is. Dennis Dodd. Like it or not, nation's most powerful conferences will have an outside role in the CFP. And the SEC and the Big Ten are working more closely than ever. And they're both going for auto bids. Multiple auto bids for each. And we believe that they're definitely going to get at least 3, probably 4, but they're going to get some auto bids.
Call from
Big Ten fan.
I'm sorry, did not get the name.
Big Ten fan.
Big Ten fan, the floor is yours.
Sweet. Going off of the 16-team playoff that they had, not automatic qualifying. The way that I think that it could work out and way into their favor is everyone gets whatever qualifying spots that they got. So let's pretend the SEC and the Big Ten get 5 spots each. Big 12 gets 2, ACC gets 2, Independent gets 1, and the G5 gets 1, or Independent G5 is sort of mixed in with the last 2.
What?
But then in the conference championship,
you're not going to have an independent subgroup. There's only Notre Dame and UConn left in that. So
well, that's what I meant. That's why I was saying, like, maybe the Independents and G5 are together as the final 2 spots, and whoever's the top-ranked 2 teams during that, they move in. But it's more so the other thing to work in the championship games is pretend. So the Big 12, the easiest one is Big 12 and ACC. They get 2 teams each. So the championship game is the 2 teams that qualify, and they're just vying for seeding in a championship game. But if you're the Big 12 or Big 10 in the SEC in this scenario, you get 5 teams, right? Your championship, same deal. You're vying for a championship game, and you're also vying for seeding. But then you have 4 other games to play with. So in that championship round, you technically could have 4 more games going in. So now if you expanded, instead of 5 teams making your playoff, you get 8 teams. They get to vie for that championship, or to vie into the playoffs, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
So then Fox, NBC, CBS, they get worked in on this automatically, because in the championship round, it's still in the conference, so they get 4 extra games to play with during that game. So, you have, let's just take this year, or Ohio State versus Oregon. They're in the championship game, and they're automatically in. And now you get seed 3 versus seed 8, so it could be Penn State versus Iowa, and then maybe it's USC versus Nebraska, and Michigan versus Washington, and the winner of those games get the automatic qualifying spot. So, like, the CFP, basically all they would have to do is reseed all the teams that are qualifying for it at the end. So there wouldn't be this, like what happened to FSU, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
They would all just sort of work their way in, and the seeding would automatically happen within the conference. So you got your spots automatically, your conference, and then you just sort of figure it out the way that you want to do it. And if
I appreciate the creativity on that. There are going to be at-large spots, no matter what playoff format they put out. The reason why there is going to be at-large spots is because they want out-of-conference games to matter. They want big-time schools playing each other. Those games are going to matter when it comes to the selection committee filling out the bracket beyond the auto bid. So there are going to be at-large. They want that incentivized big game out of conference games. So.
Copy.
Okay.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye. Thank you. Great call. Thank you very much. Yeah. I understand the thinking behind it. But it isn't, people talk about NFL Light, or make an NFL model. Don't think it's going to happen. There's going to be at-large spots. They want these out-of-conference games to matter. They're important games. You've got cross-country rivalries. You got Florida State. That's a non-conference game, out-of-conference game for now. You just got big, huge games going on. And they want those to mean something when it comes to the manager selection spot. What Tony Petitti, and it sounds like what Greg Sankey wants, because he's on board, they want the eyeballs on conference games in late October into November. They want 10, 12 of their teams in the conference race to be still alive to make it to the playoffs. They want the race to those 4 spots. That's what they want. The media companies are paying out big, big, big money. Now, the question is, does the ACC get 2? Does the Big 12 get 2? In other words, whoever gets to the championship games, conference championship games, both teams are going to go to the playoffs no matter what. But the championship game is about championship for the conference and seeding. Who can be in the top 4 in the seeding? I don't know. Our conversations that we're having at Peek Around the Corner, the people we're talking to don't know about that part. They don't know if that's even been flushed out. They don't know. But they do know, and we've been talking about it for days, the Big Ten is all in on multiple auto bids. Movie Time Blues, CFB has been political since the Bowls and the poll days. Absolutely. Absolutely. How about all the Big Ten teams and the SEC teams get in? And we just have a 34-team tournament. We can make the regular season mean literally nothing. Now remember, Mr. Monkey says, remember that there is anticipation. There's anticipation that the SEC and the Big Ten are going to grow in membership. So it's not going to be 18. It could be 20. It's not going to be 16. It could be 18 to 20 for the SEC. Big 12 is going to grow. So you got to keep that in mind. But I do understand. I understand the comment. The SEC should have been left out of the CFP last year. That's why they want 4 automatic qualifiers. I tell you what, their media partners want the 4 automatic qualifiers. ESPN wants it. ESPN wants to make sure there's a bunch of SEC brands in the playoffs because they're going to be doing the tournament. The ESPN wants it because they want those SEC conference games to have eyeballs on them during the season. They want it, the top 4 get in. Maybe the 5th place team will get in that large bid, but that's what they want. They're the ones shelling out the big money. They're the one putting on the playoffs. So this is where we're at. How do 4 qualifiers bring more eyeballs to the regular conference games? It doesn't. It lowers the ratings. Good question. But if you have a race within the SEC for the 3rd place, for the 4th place, and it means an automatic bid, that game means more. It's not just about who's going to go to the Gator Bowl. It's about who's going to go to the playoffs. So more eyeballs. The theory is more eyeballs will be on that game throughout SEC country. That's the theory. And I've gotta believe that your Mark and Phillips wants 2 and 2, right? They want 2 qualifiers.
Call from
Replica.
Thanks for calling. The floor is yours.
Hey, Greg, how you doing?
Good.
Hearing a lot of rumblings, more and more little details getting dropped.
Yeah.
We heard the Josh Pay stuff Sunday, and it's interesting. I think we're going to have to settle at 14, and I think that's the best way for everybody involved to get at least most of what they want, because nobody's going to get everything.
Mm-hmm.
But there are louder voices in the room than others, so I think now the Dennis Dodd article, more smoke about the SEC wanting those AQ spots and the networks wanting them, which makes all the sense in the world. I think the other conferences are going to have to play ball, but I do think they're going to get something in the end. I think the important thing is to not go to 16 while having the AQs, because that completely devalues the regular season. And you, like you said, Fox, ESPN, they're invested in really all of these conferences. So they want the best matchups. They want to be able to maintain the the build up throughout the season. So I think all of this, what people need to understand is whatever they agree upon now is not going to be the format come 2026 because of the ACC implosion that's going to happen. And you can already see with the amendments, these are just rumblings. The avalanche has already started for the ACC, and they're not really going to be able to survive this. They're going to lose a minimum of 6 schools. It could be as many as 12, depending on how this really goes. So
Yeah.
I think people need to keep that in mind. And I think 14 is the best format. It allows you to preserve the conference championship games and the value of those. And I think the SEC and the Big 12 need those conference championship games more than the Big 10 because the Big 12 is more national now, but they're still not as national as the Big 10. And then the SEC, their footprint, the Southeast, they don't really want to change that. So when you have those showcase events where you're in the Mercedes-Benz Dome or Jerry World, that's a showcase to let everybody know that's your territory. And I think they want to preserve that along with the money that comes with it. So
Got it.
I think people just need to keep that in mind. The ACC is not going to be a power conference, so let's get out of the idea of saying that the ACC is going to have 2 auto spots. They may not even have one once all this stuff goes down. And I think the real story in all this is what's going on with Notre Dame, because it's gone completely quiet with them. If you remember a few weeks ago, there was a lot of smoke about Big Ten being interested in Miami. The presidents had their approval. I think that was a smoke screen to get Notre Dame's attention, and I think it's working because, as you said in many of your previous shows, they're not being included in this decision making. It's very clear that Sankey and Petiti are putting the squeeze on them to join the conference because it doesn't make sense to continue to give them privileges that their own memberships don't have.
Yes.
Like, it doesn't make sense for the networks either to have Notre Dame being put ahead of the school that they're paying for. And with the NBC now being invested in the Big Ten, if that night window becomes a success, and there's a pretty good chance of that happening considering the brands that they're going to be able to showcase, it doesn't make sense for Notre Dame, for NBC to have Notre Dame really just having their own rules, being able to play whoever they want. Because it would make more financial sense for them to be in the Big Ten.
Yeah.
So
I just want to make something clear. I do think there's pressure on Notre Dame. The walls are closing in, like we all talked about. But I was specifically told that this auto bid situation, that's not part of it. The Big Ten and the SEC have a lot of incentives to do this. Their big brands want it. Their media companies want it. They can get it. They're going to get it.
Right.
Isn't about this part of it is not about putting the squeeze on Notre Dame. I just want to make that clear once again. But you are correct. Notre Dame is getting squeezed slowly and surely. Go ahead, finish the call. Appreciate it.
Right, and that's what I think the important thing is here is like once these new contracts kick in, it's going to become harder and harder for them to compete financially. And their path to winning a national championship is going to be much harder if their only path is one of a handful of auto bids, whether it be 14 or 16. So that's just something to keep in mind. They may cling to their independence, and Miami may end up getting the other big spot. But regardless, I don't think the ACC is going to be a power conference. They're not going to be treated like one. So that would be something to keep in mind. I think 14 preserves the regular season. It preserves conference championship games. It gives the out-of-conference games meeting. And I think what's going to happen is once the ACC loses Florida State and North Carolina, the other ones are going to start scrambling for higher ground. Like, it doesn't make sense for Clemson to stay in the ACC when Florida State may be making 2 to 3 times more money because a renegotiation is going to have to take place once the more brands that leave, that conference payout is going to get lower and lower. So there's no reason for Miami to stay and any of the others.
No, great call, Replica. I appreciate it.
All right, thanks, Greg.
Beautiful. Call again, sir.
Yes, sir.
Outstanding. again, 763-260-1333. Keep your head on a swivel. I think there's going to be more reporting on the updates. College football playoff update, what they're talking about. This is a big story. Hold on.
Call from
Rock and Rant.
Rock and Rant, Mr. Hurricane. Can you hold 1 second, please?
Absolutely.
I appreciate it. Just putting it up on the screen here. Pete Thamel, this is about an hour ago. Kansas has agreed to a new contract for Coach Lance Leipold that features a significant raise in his average salary to more than $7 million per year, putting him in the top 3 average salary in the Big 12. Leipold has delivered back-to-back bowl seasons at Kansas, and the school has prioritized keeping him, and they're stacked on the offensive side of the field. My question to the chat is, Austin Booker, the defensive end, is he really going into the NFL draft, or is he staying another year at Kansas? Let me know. I can't believe he's going to the NFL draft. He needs another year. But anyways, let me know in the chat. Rock and Rant, Mr. Hurricane, the floor is yours.
All right. Well, I got 2 quick comments on the conversation today, and then my bone to pick, which goes back to last night
You got it.
Conversations. So first, I think generally I have to frame my conversation and get your take on is people need to separate facts and feelings. Right? My feelings on automatic qualifiers are, I think, too many is ridiculous.
Yeah.
But the facts are not at all that the TV ratings are going to go down. There's not one example in media history of more teams getting added to playoffs or getting automatic bids that has brought ratings down. Sure, it could impact, I think cutting out the G5 in some form from having access to the playoff has more chance of that than automatic qualifiers or anything along that. Whether it's the World Cup going from 24 to 32, now there's 3 automatic qualifiers, next one because Mexico, Canada, and U.S. are all hosting. It doesn't matter. When 7 or 9 playoff teams get in the NFL, and I know college football is different from the NFL, it just doesn't matter. So, I might hate the idea they're going to get all these feelings, but all these automatic qualifiers, but it's not going to bring down the ratings no matter what anyone says. Just the history doesn't say that. Whether it's 12 teams or 16 teams, it will always go up. It just does. It would be the first time that it changes.
Got it.
Right? That's my take on that.
Yeah.
On the Notre Dame situation, I don't doubt that they're getting pressure. And, if you told me today that they're joining the Big Ten or told me tomorrow they're not joining the Big Ten, I would not be surprised either way. But I think people are naive if when Notre Dame signed their NBC contract, if NBC, Fox, and everyone else wasn't aware of what was likely happening in 6 months and weren't accounting for that in any way, shape, or form. And I do think the sense that Notre Dame is getting squeezed is overrated to a degree. So first in the next iteration of the playoffs, which people are assuming he gets what follows of, hey, there's buys and Notre Dame can't get one because they didn't win one of the 4 conference championships. Well, the flip side is it's one less game they don't have to play. In the off chance they got seeded 1 to 4, and if they get 5, 6, 7, or 8, they get a home game with that revenue, right? So it's, at the worst, they're at one less game deficit to, for instance, the loser of any of the conference championships that then made it. And that's depending upon how the future version goes, whether it's 14 teams, 16 teams, any shape around that and buys or what have you, they still are potentially in the shot where the value of their independence to them historically, actually, perceptionally, versus what they might lose in the off chance that they are competing for one of 3 at-large bids when all the cream has already been skimmed off the top, and what they might lose by not being in a conference of $5 or $10 million is almost irrelevant because Notre Dame's not making a decision on $10 million a year. They're just not, because they'll make it up with one extra away game in Los Angeles at the Rose Bowl against a visiting team or going somewhere else. So I don't doubt that they're getting pressure. I wouldn't be surprised if they switched. I think it's more likely that they figure out a way out of the grant of rights for the non-football sports for the ACC and shift to a scheduling agreement. But I don't know. That's just an opinion on there. So just I'll pause there for a take before we go into the whole ACC thing from last night.
Got it. Let's hear your take on Florida State, ACC, opposition brief. Did I get the numbers wrong in the 2/3, 3/4, 5/8? Go ahead, sir. Let me have it.
So it's confusing as hell first, right? And I have it. I have the ACC bylaws in front of me, so I know I'm not just making things up. And let me preface it by, on one hand, as a Miami fan, nothing would shock me historically, because the reason why Miami is in any position of doubt, if there is a doubt, which I still don't have, is because the administration has essentially sucked for the better part of the last 20 years and neglected the program and made horribly bad hires, including Boston College's savior, Blake James, who they now think is a god and is literally one of the worst people I've ever encountered in sports. But, so I understand that. But that's not necessarily what's going on in the future. And Dan Radakovich, I know for a fact, was brought over for two reasons from Clemson. And it wasn't just because it's a good retirement exit for him as a Miami alum. One was to bring in money and the boosters and fix the damage done from past presidents and past athletic directors to get the facilities upgraded, and that's leading to a $100 million plus football facility that they're waiting to break ground on, but is well down the road, as an example. Mm-hmm. The second thing was to navigate through the conference realignment and TV contract issues. Like, period. That's it. Those were the two reasons he was brought in. And the people that brought him in are serious board members that own Inter Miami and have relationships in media because they own an MLS team with one of the most premier soccer players in the world, as just an example, because it's not all life wallet like people like to think and go into whatever cliches. So if I'm Dan Radakovich, and then I'm going to go into the contract stuff just to like refute or clarify some things you're saying, as much as I think he's being political because he's a political beast, which is why you get the interested observer or the, hey, let's vote in, let's be nice and let Cal and Stanford and SMU come in and not burn the bridges thanks to the AAU membership. The flip side is, if you're Miami, just like Occam's razor, or, just logically, let's say you think that, oh my God, Miami's going to get left out. I got to protect my school. One of the things I would hope, and if he doesn't do this, I would be the first one to call in here and destroy the program yet again. Because Miami fans are like as good at destroying our own program's stupidity as we are at torturing that Georgia just scored again on Florida State. And I want to keep saying that I didn't have like all these Seminoles always letting us live rent-free in their mind. If they voted against Florida State, I would personally be afraid that Florida State, even though this is not good for either school, if they went to the Big Ten as an example, would be like, you know what, Miami, you voted against me at this moment instead of just like staying out of it. I'm not renewing our schedule every year. We're not going to do our game. And they have to play. And if they go to the Big Ten, Florida State is required to play Florida every single year by the state, right? So they could easily do what Florida did to Miami. And if for some reason Florida State got into the SEC, which the more it seems like they're not going to be, the more I'm convinced there's more of a shot because the way this world has been, who the hell knows? They could still leave Miami out and decide to have 3 easy out-of-conference games if both conferences are on 9. But back to the point last night, the thing, I have no idea how Miami voted in this supposed ACC. We got, after the baby was born, we went back and got approval from our members model that everyone's acting like is true because ACC lawyers from 1-800-Lawyers put this into a report with a Tampa Bay writer.
Yep.
None of us know who voted on what, period, full stop, end of story. But the thing I have an issue with, or I want to clarify, is there is absolutely 0% chance that Clemson, and especially North Carolina, got no notice of an upcoming meeting or an upcoming vote. There's nothing in the ACC bylaws And you can push a little bit, but you're not pushing UNC in their own conference any more than you're pushing Ohio State, Wisconsin, or Michigan in the Big Ten, or USC prior to their exit out of the Pac-12. Like, we'll pull a fast end around on either of those schools. It's just not possible in those conferences, and it's not possible to do in North Carolina in the ACC. There's no mechanism to exclude a member who is not on suspension, on expulsion, or is given notice of withdrawal. That's one. So there's no, I call 100,000% BS on Clemson saying they didn't know this meeting would happen, if that's what you're hearing, or North Carolina. I don't buy it. Show me how that happened to those schools in the bylaw. Second part is when you get to the actual, hey, to do this vote. So let's just say that you're talking about 3/4 notice. That's not how it actually works. What it says is to waive 3 days of notice, you would need 3/4 of a vote to do that. But there's basically 3 meetings in the ACC that are quote unquote regular meetings in a year. One happens generally in the fall, one happens during the conference championship for basketball, and one's generally in May. Those are the quote unquote regular meetings. Special meetings can be called by the chair of the ACC, can be called by the commissioner of the ACC, or 2/3 of the board members. Any one of those groups could say, we're going to have a meeting in 3 days to then have a vote on something that we weren't planning on voting. That's what a special meeting is, period, black and white. Happy to have another lawyer look at it. I'm not a lawyer, but I do biz dev and I deal with this crap all the time. Because maybe I missed something. I'm not trying to say I'm infallible, but I'm reading it. I've read it for like hours because I was so annoyed last night hearing the conversation. One about maybe Miami did do it, which would piss me off personally.
Yeah.
But more speculating that it did happen when it may not have happened. Mm-hmm. So that's what happened. So a special meeting isn't like, hey, let's waive the 3/4 for notice. It's like any one of those groups can call a meeting and no notice of 3 days needs to be done if 3/4 of the members have approved it, which would mean, going back to the scenario, that Clemson and or North Carolina would have had to have been notified in order to object to it being 3 days.
Okay, let me ask you a question on how many schools, according to the ACC bylaws, how many schools would have been needed to vote to give the authorization for Jim Phillips to file that amended complaint?
2/3.
2/3. Okay.
The litigation part is 2/3, and Florida State is allowed to be excluded from any of these conversations if the ACC is operating under that Florida State has given a notice of withdrawal. I know that's in dispute, right? Because like technically ACC is saying one thing, Florida State's saying another. On the one hand, Florida State is saying that if they win, they want their notice of withdrawal to be retroactive, right? So that's still to be determined, but like, let's just assume that they're removed, right? Because ACC is operating as if they're in their right and no injunction has been done or any other legal terms that go there. It's 2/3 to approve a litigation. In this case, seemingly to approve a litigation that has already been filed, right? So it was already filed. It doesn't seem like anybody approved that from what we know or has been reported, but again, who knows? We don't know. Then, so it seems like maybe 2/3 agreed to approve this amended litigation. So that would mean that 10 teams, so that means that Florida State's one of the 15 that's not voting, 4 schools in theory, or 3.5, right, I guess, whatever. But 3 schools could have not voted to do it, right? So,
well, no, actually 5 schools. 5 schools could have voted.
Well, Florida State's one, right?
Yeah,
Florida
4
State
other
is
ones.
one. So it's depending upon whether it's exactly 10 or 10 plus. You know, so I didn't parse that number.
Yeah.
The other part that's not really clear to me, and I've looked at it and maybe somebody else knows, like I'm not 100. I have no idea, to be honest, whether every single vote like this is required that every member who was at the vote knows how the other members actually voted. It's not clear, like, hey, every representative that's the director of to make this vote I'm going to know that North Carolina voted this way or not. There's nothing that says it's public to the other members that I've seen so far. There's nothing that says it's like a secret vote. So I don't know whether it would be clear to get out. Obviously, there's some history of, we knew who the Magnificent Seven were. We seem to know who voted for the members to approve getting SMU, Stanford, and Cal in, whether that's people talked to each other and therefore it got out and nobody either disputed or refuted or confirmed. And we've just taken that for granted that UNC, Clemson, and Florida State voted against and everybody else did it. You and I have already spoken about why I think Miami may have done it, if that's true. Mm-hmm. So, that's my reading of everything. Again, I have no idea who would have voted to the 2/3 to support the amended complaint, but it's not at all accurate, to the best of my reading, that you needed 3/4 of the people to approve having the meeting to approve that, right? It's
got it.
3/4 of the people needed to waive getting notice if one of the 4 paths of calling a special meeting actually happened.
So
we shall see.
So in theory, you could have had 10 ACC schools to vote to give Jim Phillips the power to file the amended complaint, and in theory, UNC, Clemson, Florida State, Miami, Notre Dame could have been, in theory, just speculation, those 5 could have been the schools that did not vote to give Jim Phillips the okay.
Correct.
And again, this is just speculation on my part, but I think Virginia probably voted to give Jim Phillips the power because the president of Virginia and Jim Phillips have become very close. He's the co-chair and all that stuff. But anyways, all speculation. I appreciate it. I appreciate you getting this aired out for us, Rock and Rant. You've clarified it. Again, we were just speculating. We did not know yesterday. I do appreciate your phone call, sir.
All right. Have a great day, Greg.
You got it, buddy. Thanks. Great call, Rock and Rant. The main point, Rock and Rant was clarifying that didn't need a three-fourths of a vote to give notice and all that stuff. So I appreciate Rock and Rant's call. We're never going to find out, probably never going to find out who voted yes to give Phillips the authorization.
Call from
Crab Cakes and Football.
Crab Cakes and Football is on the line. Mr. Terrapin, the floor is yours.
Hey, that's that secret vote. If that came after the injunction was filed in North Carolina, wouldn't that be invalid because it was after the fact? And that's what I think they're going to, that's what it sounds like they're doing, is they're like, oh, we missed a step. Let's go back and correct the step by having these secret vote. Now they got to be able to prove that it was done beforehand, which I don't think they're going to be able to do. So that would probably hurt the ACC case more than anything.
You know what? I'm interested, Crab Cakes and Football. If Florida State files something, if they volley back before the March 22nd court date, and if it has to do with any part of the timing of the vote and all that stuff, I'm going to be very interested to see what Florida State says in their complaint if they file another one before March 22nd. Continue on.
And second thing is, I mean, the last time I called you, I ranted against automatic qualifiers, but then I heard someone make a really good point that kind of changed my mind. If it takes the college football committee's opinion out of it and just automatic, I mean, it's all they got to do is just number them, but it's not, who's in, who's out, like what they did to Florida State this year, then I'm kind of, going to change my tune a little bit and hope they do go with automatic qualifiers. Now, is 4 too many? Is 3 too many? I don't know. That's for people way smarter than me to figure out, but I think that they need to find a way to take the ramblings of the college football committee out of, their subjectivity out of it, because apparently they get influenced by ESPN and Fox and how big the brand is and all this other stuff, and leave out the work that these teams have honestly done. Yes, a kid may have gotten injured, but there's many times in history someone's gotten injured and they were good enough to still play until Florida State came along. So that's one of my questions. And do you think it'll be 16 when it's all said and done? I think it will be. I hope it's 16 because 14 just doesn't make any sense to me. I can't figure out 14 to save my life, how that one's even going to work.
Well, I mean, if people who are reporting on this believe that 14 is the favorite, we think it's going to end up being 16. One of the advantages of 14 is you keep some value in the conference championship games, because the top two seeds would get the top two conference champions would get a bye, 1 and 2 seed. So that keeps value in the conference championship games. If we're going to 16 teams, then all the conference championship games are basically for seeding.
Right.
So that's one of the advantages of keeping it to 14. We happen to think, we've been told, the people we talk to believe it's going to go to 16, because going to 16 gives more ability, more options to grease the skids for everybody to buy in, and they can quickly get this done.
Right. Because if they do the automatic qualifiers, like you said, the ending of the year would just be for seeding. But if they take away or limit the amount of automatic qualifiers, now the games are going to matter more during the regular season, and then you're still going to have that subjectivity of who's in and who's out, but on the back half, and not in the front half.
You're going to have at-large bids regardless.
Right.
Just how many of them are you going to have? Are you going to have 3? Or are you going to have 5? If you go to 16 teams, you have the ability to have more at-large bids that might be needed to get certain universities on board. But we'll hopefully we'll find out within the next 3 weeks.
Yeah, March 22nd is when this thing comes down. So hopefully before then we'll find out everything dealing with the playoffs. So that way. Because I've got a funny feeling that by the end of the year, maybe by August, they're going to have a settlement for this, hopefully this whole entire thing. And I'm really hoping, and I've really never really been that hopeful before, that Notre Dame might actually announce by the end of the year, maybe not this year, maybe it might be next year, that they're joining with someone, most likely the Big Ten. Because if they sign off on a 16-team playoff, and they've pretty much thrown in the towel, and they know that they need to join a conference, and I think it's more financial than it is about playoff access, because they can get the playoff access. I think it's NIL and all this other stuff that's going on now. They're going to need the finances. Then if joining a conference gets them the finances, and I think that's probably what they'll do.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
So I think this is where it stands now, and I'm very curious. So have yourself a good day, Greg.
You got it, buddy. Thank you. Crab cakes and football. Excellent call, Mr. Terry. JD, thank you so much for your super chat once again, for your generosity. Thank you, JD. Apparently, the January 12th ACC vote was unanimous. Not sure how many participated. Well, at least 10 of them did. 2 of the new members who didn't have a vote, they don't have a vote. They don't have voting. Were also in the meeting. If it was unanimous, I don't know. I don't know what that means. Don't know how many people were there. But thank you, John D. Thank you for your super chat. Appreciate it.
Call from
BJ.
BJ, thanks for calling, sir. The floor is yours.
What's up, Greg? Thanks for having me on.
You got it.
A few things, and I try to keep it as short and clear as possible on a few different matters.
Okay.
But first and foremost, always Florida State versus ACC. I think when it comes to the voting, what I understood it to be is that 2/3 has to be available for the meeting to be official. So you can have 100% approval if only 12 members show up.
Or 10 members show up.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
10 members show up. So
Yeah.
that probably happened. The last caller mentioned about North Carolina being the home of the ACC and just an integral part to that conference. And I get it. It's hard for me to think that North Carolina, Clemson, Miami would agree to something when they're, basically want to follow Florida State's coattail out the door.
Yes, sir.
Seemingly,
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I don't know what your opinion about that is, but, my rational sense is telling me the small private schools that can't go anywhere, don't have access to the Big Ten or SEC, they are financially incentivized to back the ACC
Yeah.
because they don't have another route, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I think, I think we can get to the, I think we can get to the number 10. I think we can get to 10 schools that would want to, and I think that would include North Carolina State and Virginia Tech at this point. I think they'd be part of the 10 that would be voting to give Phillips the power at this point, because regardless, most of these ACC schools want to give Jim Phillips and the lawyers as much leverage as possible if there needs to be a settlement with Florida State and a few other schools. They want as much money back. They want their own Washington State and Oregon State type of war chest. So, yep, we can get to 10. No question about it.
Right. Agree. And on another kind of similar topic, I see this in the comment section a lot about the perceived weakness of the ACC, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's separating facts from your fandom or whatever. It's a business, right? And when you look at the TV numbers, right? Because that's the only thing that matters to executives. If you remove Florida State, the ACC TV numbers, viewership numbers, still more competitive or better than the Big 12s. You can remove Florida State and Clemson, and it'll be about equal. The difference, in my opinion, is that ESPN owns the ACC network, which is an asset.
Yeah.
And if you're a business guy, if you have something that's making you, profiting you $150 million approximately every year, you would be an idiot to get rid of that.
Yeah.
And you need content, right? You need content for their ESPN Plus. So ostracizing 6, 7 East Coast schools is just a not smart of a business move. I'm not talking about on the field play and that stuff, but from a business standpoint, it will be not smart to ostracize 6 schools for content purposes. What is your opinion about that?
Well, I get what you're going. The ACC network is a definite plus that the ACC schools have over the Big 12, now on ESPN Plus. No question about it. Big 12's advantage is Tier 1, Tier 2. Their advantage is their next contract is still going to come up before ACC's contract. I agree with you. The ACC network, ESPN's making money. ACC schools are doing well with that. However, the problem is if the ESPN walks away, right, for 2027 and beyond, they walk away, from having the distribution rights for the ACC. They walk away from the ACC network as well. And that implodes,
Correct.
just like the Longhorn Network imploded, in which Disney was the owner of the Longhorn Network. ESPN was the owner of the Longhorn Network. So networks have blown up before. ACC network could blow up again. Does that answer your question? I mean, yes, there's value.
Yeah, it does.
There's value up. There's value with the Northeast schools and everything.
It does. The two things that I think are critical. ESPN to make a lot of money off of the long form network because of distribution. Distribution is the most important aspect of TV rights, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the ESPN fought for the last 2 or 3 years to get more distribution for the ACC network. So that's a little different. And the other difference is if you're paying from an ESPN's perspective, you're paying the ACC and the Big Ten and the Big 12 teams about the same per year. They pay the ACC a little bit more, but it's roughly about the same, $31.5 million or so. So even if the ACC blows up and the Big Ten wants to grab some ACC teams, ESPN is still footing that bill. Right? So to me, it doesn't make sense that you're going to pay the same money anyway, whether they're ACC on their shirt or whether they're Big 12 on their shirt, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to, go. And I think another aspect too is with the ACC, the distribution is through cable. Now with the Big 12, most of the Big 12 games are on their streaming or on the ESPN streaming platform. So you don't really have to fight for distribution there. So that'll be a little easier, a different business model, but a little easier to kind of get your content out at a fair market value.
Mm-hmm.
But those are the two differences I see when it comes to the pros and the cons. I just don't see the benefit from an ESPN's perspective from moving teams from one way or the other, especially after you've given up the West Coast essentially to Fox, which can't be a good business move from ESPN standpoint.
Yeah. No. Yeah. You make a great point as always, BJ.
Well, and lastly, I don't want to take up too much of your time.
Yep.
Is when it comes to the expanding or the number, I think it's a lot of nothing. To be honest with you, the number really isn't important to the fan. It's not important, right? I think ultimately, it's like a slow death. The Big Ten and the SEC will get what they want, be it now or later. They may start out at 14, so it's more palatable, but in the next iteration, it'll be 16. But ultimately, I think they want 4, because if I'm leading the Big Ten or the SEC, if I think the ACC may implode, 4 automatic bids out of 16 isn't enough, right?
Yeah.
If we're left to 3 power conferences and 14 spots, I'm going to need 5 spots from each conference. I think getting 14 and 4 is good for now, but ultimately, if the ACC were to implode, I think the Big Ten and the SEC will get at least 5 auto bids. That's just my opinion. You can correct me or give me your insight on that logic.
No, I agree with you, BJ. We're being told it's the people have been talking to us who've been pretty much nails on this. They think it's going to get to 16 by 2026, and that the Big Ten is going to get 4 and the SEC is going to get 4, but there's going to be enough slots where everyone's skids are going to get greased. That's why they think it's going to go to 16. Kind of like what you just said, BJ.
So I got a question. Even with 4 auto bids, a conference can still have more than that, correct?
Yep.
Yeah. So I see maybe 4 auto bids, but I mean, if you're looking at a 16-team playoff with 3 major conferences and a G5, it's safe to say the G5 gets 1 a year.
Sure.
The Big 12 gets 1, maybe 2, and the rest, the 4 for each, Power 2 conference, and the other, for the other 5 or so at-large bids will be Notre Dame 1, and the Big Ten and the SEC will get maybe 1 or 2 apiece.
Yeah. If there's a 16-team playoff, and there's only 3 power conferences, the Big 12 is going to get more than one team in. No question about that. Yeah. Probably more than one auto bid. So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe 2, but
yeah.
And I'll just end it with this. But all that really doesn't matter. What matters most is the money. And if you can go, if you're going to negotiation with 8 auto bids out of 16, immediately you want 50% of the pie.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. And so that 50% of the pie is essentially another, $20 million or so per team. Right.
Yeah.
Versus, Big 12 and so they end up being like 10 per team. So that financial gap just keeps getting bigger and bigger. And at some point, at that escalation, it's really not a fair game when my partner's dealing with $120 million a year and I'm trying to make it work with $50 million a year.
Yeah.
But thank you for inviting me on, and as always, great show. Love listening.
You got it, BJ. Appreciate the call. Call again, sir.
Yes, sir.
Awesome. If you are new to the channel, or if you haven't done so already, please subscribe and get your notifications on. We were on last night. We came on before lunchtime today. We can come on again later tonight. Probably not, but who knows? We go where the story goes. We keep giving you a little bit of cloak and dagger information. We've been doing it for days when it comes to the automatic qualifying spot. Dennis Dodd's report basically reads like I wrote it, but I did not write it. I don't know Dennis Dodd. He does not know me. But this is what the information is coming out from behind the curtain. We were able to give you a peek on it the last few days. The Big Ten is digging their heels in, and so now is the SEC. Tony, Greg, are you going to the barn tonight? See Callum Clark, Iowa Hawkeyes, to see Mrs. Hawkeye. No, I'm not. Wednesday nights are very, very busy for me. I rarely do a Wednesday night show, if you've noticed that. My evenings are bogged down. Me and Maria, my wife, we've got a lot of things going on Wednesday evenings, so I won't be able to go to the barn to see the great Hawkeye. But thank you for the super chat, Tony. I appreciate your continued generosity to the channel. We are going to close this live show up. It's 12:30. We've been on the air for about an hour and 40 minutes. I appreciate the donations, the great comments, the great phone calls. We've covered a lot today. Dennis Dodd's report. CBS Sports. We provide a link. If you've come in late, go to the description box below the video. Hit the link. If you want to be a member of Cloak and Dagger, go to the description box. There's a link. Hit the link. Hit the join button. There is a lot of things going on in college football, as you know, and we are staying on top of it at Peek Around the Corner. So please stick with us here. We're covering everything. Florida State, ACC. Eventually this week, we're going to get to the top-ranked quarterbacks of the Big Ten. We've already done the ACC, the SEC, the Big 12. We've got the Big Ten left to do in the Power 4 conferences, and then we're going to take the top G5 quarterbacks and we're going to rank them. And then you can let me have it. Let me know how wrong I am on these rankings. Just like you did with the Big 12, the SEC, and the ACC. Can't wait to start talking about spring football. Spring practices have started. Each and every day there's more schools starting their spring practices leading up to the spring football game. I cannot wait. I hope you stay with us here at Peek Around the Corner during the off season as we head towards a fascinating 12-team playoff 2024. I think the regular season is going to mean more than ever. We shall see how it works out. But I want to thank you all until next time. From all of us at PATC to all of you, please you all take great care of each other. Thank you so very much.